everybody. Welcome back to Harbor Discussions. This is the 21st interview now, and I'm in here with Justin Anthony. He is the vocalist and guitarist of Consumed with Hatred. He's also in Mortal Ground and 1312. What are your roles in both of those bands?
So Mortal Ground, I'm just the singer
Okay.
and the lyricist, and 1312 was like our pandemic band. So when Consume with Hatred originally kind of disbanded, me and Tommy from 1312, or from Consumed, we started another band, and that ended up just not panning out. So we recorded a demo. I like the demo. It's like one of my favorite like things that I've done, but that's not really an active thing
I
right now.
gotcha.
But we'll see what happens. And with Consumed, I am actually just the singer now.
Okay.
So we're playing a show next weekend, and it will be the first show ever with me just singing. And I help out with the songwriting.
Has that always been part, like, have you always been part of writing the song lyrics for Consumed with Hatred?
Yeah, I don't sing other people's lyrics. Does that sound pretentious? No,
Yeah,
I
no.
just it's just like it's my voice, man. I wanna say.
That's
Like,
usually how it goes.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like the vocalist almost always writes the lyrics,
yeah,
but
yeah.
every now and
So,
then, there's a few songs here and there that sometimes get written by other people, I guess.
but if somebody comes up with something cool, I'm like, all right, like if somebody's got a line, I'm not like opposed to it. Like, no, it has to come from me. I don't roll like that.
I gotcha. So before we get into the music, I just wanted to get an early personal background on you. What part of were you born and raised in Maryland?
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania.
actually. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from Hazleton, Pennsylvania, actually. And I came down to the Maryland area um, about 15 years ago.
Okay.
For school and work and stuff. And yeah, it's been cool. It was a slow start, man, because when you're a transplant, you got to go to a lot of shows before people are just like, all right, he's okay, and so.
Right.
But it's been awesome, man. Like I had such good experiences down here at shows, and just wilding out and having fun, writing music.
So what was it like growing up in the part of Pennsylvania that you were from?
Oh, it was so different. It was like I grew up in such like a backwards, um, racist town. It was.
Rural as hell.
Yeah, dude. Like, so the town that I grew up in, which isn't Hazleton, I was born there, but I grew up in a suburb of Hazleton, if that's
Right,
even an
right.
expression. Dude, there was like one traffic light, and like it's like you're in Pennsylvania, but it's the kind of town where like people would like hang like rebel flags and stuff like that, and it's just like
Yeah,
I don't know, man. This is a weird vibe for me, but you know,
that doesn't sound too far off from this area. Not particularly like the part of Westminster we're in right now. We're
yeah,
more in the city, but
yeah,
it's also very rural once you
yeah.
like kind of go down the highway a little bit, and yeah,
Yeah.
you'll see that kind of stuff around here
Yeah, and
too.
that's unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah, well, because there's references to that stuff in the music, and we'll talk a little bit further about that.
Yeah, yeah, but then I moved down here, and I'm like basically in the D.C. area,
Right.
and going to shows around here in Baltimore and wherever. It's just like it's in totally different world. It's very diverse. Everybody works together. It's just like it's cool. You feel like you're part of something.
Definitely.
I think that's cool.
Is the part of Maryland that you ended up moving to, is it like more city life versus the rural area you were in?
Yeah, city life. So when I first moved down here, I was just a couple of blocks away from DC. So
Okay.
it was how DC sprawls,
Oh yeah.
like right on the outside there. But yeah, very cool, very different. Lots of traffic lights, not just one.
Yeah, DC traffic is one of those like notorious things.
Yeah,
That's like I feel like one of the biggest things you hear about is
bro.
traffic.
Yeah,
I've never had to drive because like all the times we've pretty much like Ubered or
yeah,
I've been in the car.
yeah.
There's
Oh,
some
that's the way to
places
go.
you just have to like Uber unless you're native there, I guess.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, it's just.
I went to Vegas. That was kind of one of those places. We were only there
Yeah,
for a couple days, but
yeah. Vegas, it's like there's this strip, and then there's just kind of a whole lot of nothing, and.
yeah, that was a whole There was a recap on this channel of my Vegas trip. I was still underage, so I couldn't really do nothing. But I feel like that was good for me because I got to like.
Is that like I couldn't really do anything, or like I
So
couldn't do
I
anything?
mean, like I have a medical card, so like I was actually able to buy bud out there, and then also like I smoked some cigars and stuff. But like I couldn't go to the bar, buy drinks. I couldn't
Yeah,
gamble and
yeah,
stuff. But like
yeah,
I feel like that's good because now I'll go back and kind of probably not go into it as hard because
yeah.
when you're like a sober person, totally sober, can't gamble, you really see how fucking crazy it is
Oh,
and
dude,
sad it is at the same time.
it really is. Yeah, it's just kind of Vegas is its own little world. Cool place though.
I thought
To
so.
visit, I think.
It's-
I don't know if I'd want to live there.
nah,
You know, but
there's nothing but bad that can come from I feel
yeah,
like living there.
yeah. So, but
Like it is a different world. As soon as you touch down, like I knew Vegas was pretty much just a gambling city.
yeah, yeah,
I swear to God, the second I came out of the airport tunnel, like the tunnel from the plane to the airport,
yeah,
immediately locked eyes with slot machines. I was like, Jesus Christ.
yeah,
It's like they didn't even give me a second to get off the plane before like
yeah.
contemplating.
And they make those hotels, or not the hotels, the casinos. I mean,
Oh yeah, they're
it's
like
so
malls
big.
basically.
It's so big. If you're inebriated, which is about half the population of
Yeah,
Vegas,
because it's also open carry everywhere.
you can't figure out how to leave. It's just like you're wandering around. It's just like, I don't know. It's just an observation I made. Maybe it's some kind of
Oh
conspiracy.
no, I mean, there's like if you kind of look into it, there's all sorts of stuff that they do in Vegas to kind of
Yeah,
keep you in a trance basically. Like I think they either increase the airflow inside the casinos to like keep you kind of awake and
is that
stuff
a
like
thing?
that. I believe so. If you've ever
wild.
noticed, it is pretty chilly inside when you're walking around. You can in some spots you can feel where they're blasting fucking air in there.
Damn.
And then also like obviously the lighting in there, there's like a serious lack of daylight.
Yeah.
So you kind of just lose track of time in there.
That's wild.
It
Yeah,
is wild. And
I didn't know about the air circulation.
yeah, and the pricing's
So
fucked
creepy.
up. It's
Dude.
like
Yeah.
literally like $7 for a liter of water and
Seriously.
shit like that. It's totally out of hand. I mean, it's like I said, I went there for the When We Were Young festival.
Really? How was
Yeah.
that?
I was the first day that got canceled. So I couldn't even, yeah, dude.
I'm
Which,
sorry.
yeah, it was like, I'll be honest, I wasn't super upset just because I try not to, I like the stoic mindset of like, shit that's not under your control.
Yeah.
I had a decent time in Vegas other than that, but like, what's crazy is it was like as last minute as it could get.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I forget if they opened at 8 o'clock or whatever. I'm talking like, it was past 8 o'clock, gates weren't opening. And some dude who didn't even have a microphone or a megaphone was like yelling out that it was canceled, and it was basically like a big telephone game.
Wow.
And it was like, dude, thousands of people were lined up outside. It was,
It's a master class on how not to do a fest. Now I heard on the I don't know if this is true, but I did hear, I saw people say, people were put on the flyer and they didn't know their bands were playing. Is that true? Is that a thing? Was that a thing? So they didn't confirm with the bands. They just posted the flyer.
I
like,
did not hear anything about that. That's interesting.
I wonder if-
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Yeah. Wow.
It was all due to some wind advisory because it's the desert and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it did get a little windy, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like it could have went down. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a bunch of kids who like to fucking bump into each other and wave their limbs violently. Like I think a little wind would have been all right.
Yeah.
You didn't see no tents flying around that day, because like literally it's not like Las Vegas halted. Fucking everybody's still walking outside. It's like I was like, come on. And there was even like the bands were still able to pull together and do venues at other or shows at other venues. So it's just like, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it came to your background and stuff like that, I also was curious because when it comes to the lyrics and stuff like that of the music, what was your school experience like, especially when it came to like learning government and social studies and stuff like that?
Well, I don't really think you learn the important questions in school.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the questions and most of like the real heroes are like they're just wholesale removed. You know, there's some quote, I'm going to misquote it now because I'm on the spot. You know, the powerful will never give you the education you need to overthrow them. So, for
Right.
example, like, you know, we learn about who's that dude that rode a horse and that's all he did.
Oh, the guy who's like the British are coming, that dude.
Yeah, that dude. So he rode a horse. That's great. And who's the lady who like sewed a thing, a magical flag? Was it Betsy Ross?
That sounds
Yeah,
right. That
yeah.
sounds right.
So you learn about that. Okay, that's good. You don't learn about like the Smedley Butlers of the world. Okay, who, you know, 2 Congressional Medal of Honor winner, and you know he essentially single-handedly stopped the Wall Street push. So the
Mm.
Wall Street's attempt to take over the government. You know, a total coup. Yeah, you don't learn about that, and you know there's a reason. There's a reason for stuff like that. But yeah, I just went to a normal high school, and you know, I went to university after that. But I mean, even there, you know, the questions are just wholesale absent from the discussion.
Right.
Noam Chomsky writes a lot about that in his book, Manufacturing Consent. You know, the propaganda model, the university setting, the secondary education setting. You know, every governmental backed education, including private schools, is part of this thing that just basically funnels you, you know, where you need to be and teaches you to be just smart enough to pull the levers, but not really. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you definitely like answered the question I had, which was, you know, and I figured you wouldn't think that schools are teaching enough, and you're right because there's all sorts of posts online now where people are pointing out these sort of unsung heroes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're often teaching like the wrong side or just a side. A lot of times they're like teaching about people that are totally crooked and have done terrible things instead
Yeah.
of highlighting, you know,
Yeah.
and there's only a few teachers out there in every area that are actually like going beyond the curriculum and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you learn about okay, Adam Smith. Okay, we learn about the invisible hand, which is an expression he used twice. But you don't learn about what he really said. So Adam Smith warned us about the concentrations of private power that are basically in control of the society now. But you'll never, you just wholesale won't learn about it. Okay,
Yeah.
you won't learn about any of that. Thomas Jefferson did the same thing. But yeah, no, you're exactly right.
And something we'll talk about a little bit later. Um, you'll learn about Adolf Hitler, you'll learn about the Nazis and stuff like that, but they won't teach you about like Operation Paperclip, you know?
Yeah, yeah, you know what? I forget what that was.
So-
I know I read about it before.
Yeah,
but
like
I
I
just don't
said,
remember what it was.
I'm gonna bring it up a little bit later, but that was basically the U.S. government taking like Nazi scientists and stuff like that after the war had ended, and basically kind of sneaking them over, and just employing them for their
Okay,
knowledge.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but it's like I said, they'll teach you about the Nazis, but they're not gonna tell you that our own government was bringing them over
Yeah.
and using them for their knowledge, which is like and there's all sorts of stuff when they'll teach you about JFK's assassination, but they're not going to go into like how unknown all the circumstances are.
Yeah.
They might glimpse over the fact that there's they might be like, yeah, there's lots of theories about how his death, but like they're not going to really go into it.
To tell you the truth, man, I don't know really anything about the JFK assassination. I know there's a debate that goes on. I know there's a lot of ideas out there. It's not something I ever really,
I've watched videos, but I couldn't drop any knowledge on the spot.
Okay.
I mean, it's just I think it's interesting. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's just one of the most popular theories. You know what I mean? When it comes to describing Consumed with Hatred and Mortal Ground and just the music that you do in general, is it fair to say that it's political or anti-political?
You know what, man? Like,
Or how else
It-
would you
part of-
describe the
part of
theme?
me part of me wants to say yes. We'll focus on Consume with Hatred right now. Part of me wants to say yes, but then part of me wants to say it's not really. The question's kind of a non sequitur because I believe that all art is political, right? So sometimes you like it to be what you're saying, but sometimes it's what you're not saying. So for example, think about 2020. There were, fascists marching in the streets, open calls for, You know what was going on.
Yeah.
We all were there. If you're gonna make art that's just like, um, I don't know, about aliens or something, not that there's anything wrong with that, but to me, it's like that is political. You're being political by not even addressing any part of this. And I'm not saying everybody's got to be like bad religion or or anti-flag or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But it has to be addressed some way. I think as an artist, I think that that's really important. Like Howard Zinn said, you can't be neutral on a moving train. I'm gonna get on the train to go to New York City in a couple of days because we're gonna have some fun out there.
Nice.
And like it's just like I can't stand on that train and be like, well, I'm agnostic towards where I end up. I'm not really pro New York City, dude. If you don't if you don't want to go to New York City, you got to derail this train or something.
Right.
Maybe I'm reaching a little bit with that analogy, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
So,
there's a saying where it's like even no politics is politics,
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of thing.
so consumed with hatred. My favorite thing that we did, I like our logo a lot. The barcode and
Yeah, yeah.
the flag, and it's based on something. There was a dude, he recently passed, Sheldon Woolen, his name is, and I think the book was it called Democracy Inc. He coined a term called inverted totalitarianism. It has a certain ring to it. I like the way that
Yeah,
sounds.
definitely.
And he used that to describe the current system that we have. So we have all these choices. I could buy Perrier, or I could buy Coke, or I could buy
Right.
Pepsi. I can, or okay, let's talk about actual politics. I could go to the polls and vote for the red guy. I could vote for the blue guy, or red woman and blue woman. Whatever they identify as, and I have that choice. But the concentrations of private power that Adam Smith warned us about have seized everything. They rigged the whole system. So, for example, let's say we want to start a political group or whatever, and we want to coerce people into voting against the interest of the banks, Goldman
Right.
Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, all the fucking dregs of society. And we go to the polls in, let's say, 2020. Who do you vote for? Okay, well, you don't vote for anybody then. You're not going to have anything to do. Both sides are really for the banks. Okay, let's say we want to do the same thing with war. We can't do it. Both sides are just completely for the military-industrial complex, and that's just how it is, homie.
Yeah.
And so there's this illusion of choice, and we have all this freedom that a lot of us really don't exercise it, which is kind of concerning. And there's a certain type of, to me, like I think about that, I'm like, that's so fucking metal. That's cool. And that's kind of like where the logo and the idea comes from. This late stage capitalism kind of dystopian reality that we have here. But I hope that answers your question. But
I gotcha. So when you were playing guitars and vocals at the same time, and you were like kind of learning how to do both simultaneously, was that difficult to do or learn at all?
you know what? Um, I think my skills as far as being in a band are pretty average. Like I don't have much of an ego, but like that is one thing that I picked up, and I'm just like, yeah, I could do this, no problem. And like it didn't take that much practice. So like yeah, that's just it was something I walked into. I love playing the guitar, which is why I kind of have a bit of angst giving it up live, but I think it's going to be more effective for the band. I'm going to be able to
Right.
connect with people more. So
Yeah. Well, I can say, like, not to skip too ahead,
yeah,
but with the newest album that y'all put out,
yeah,
I can definitely say that the vocals have definitely, like, I don't know if whether to say amplified or just that you can definitely tell there's more into it. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
So I
Awesome.
feel like that's what you were kind of saying as far as like it's good for the band in a way because I feel like there's more focus on your vocals and then there's more focus on the guitar.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, man, and thank you for that reaction video, man. That
Hell
was
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
of
that.
course, man. I might have to make a separate channel for stuff like that because I had so much going on my channel at the time that because I want people to come and like because my main focus is like the interviews and stuff like that because that's where a lot of the information comes out and stuff like that. and I would like talk about it with other people, and then I would also have all this random stuff. So I kind of didn't want it to
Yeah.
coincide, and I didn't want people getting lost in all the other stuff because this
Yeah.
is what's important.
Cool. Cool, man.
But yeah, definitely. That was I totally forgot. I forgot I did that. Honestly, man, I'm glad you reminded me of that. Um, so for the meaning of the band name "Consumed with Hatred," I kind of wanted you to talk about that, and I picked these lyrics from the song "The Knife." God is dead, prophets are sacred, everything is consumed with hatred.
Yeah.
So if you could tell me how that sort of correlates to the meaning as well.
Well, it's kind of like it's one of those things where you could think about the name and it's just like, oh yeah, they're a metal band, they're a hardcore band. Those dudes are pissed. But it also kind of has this, this subtle, and if you really think about it, you look at the logo and you think about what I'm talking about. Well, it's also kind of a commentary on capitalism, and I like that. I like the depth of something like that. This is how I like approaching things. The dude that made Super Mario, right? He had an interview the one time. He's like, "What makes your game so fantastic? Like, what do you kind of what do you think it is, the essence that makes your art, your video games interesting?" And he said, "Well, it's really easy to pick up, but difficult to master." And I sat and thought, I'm like, that's a really good quote. Like, that's what art should strive to be. Like, you get it. I don't have to explain myself, but at the same time, like, there's like layers. It's like a lasagna of beatdown, or you know what I mean. But
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, that's kind of true. I mean, something like podcasting's pretty easy to jump into, but as far as actually like because there's so many out there, like
yeah.
there's a lot of stages for growth and stuff like that.
So to answer your question, God is dead, prophets are sacred, everything is consumed with hatred. Well, it's just kind of like, you know, religion, and I'm not a religious guy. That's not my thing.
Yeah, that comes prevalent in some of the lyrics and stuff like that. But I do get the meaning of what you're trying to say.
But I mean, like, even if I was and I wanted to go be a good Christian man, like, this thing that religion represents in our society now is just, it's become so, it's such a grotesque tribalism that's infected and co-opted everything. And it's just kind of become this apologetics for this complex that exists, that combines this weird tribal religion thing and, like, this really crazy unregulated capitalism thing, and it's just a cacophony of bullshit. So
Yeah, I was like raised Catholic. I'm not like a practicing Catholic anymore. We used to go to church as a family and stuff like that, but now that I'm older, like I hate the money grabbing aspect of the churches nowadays.
Yeah.
It's like and it's crazy too because like it's a lot of people who really don't even have a lot of money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They know the kind of position people are in, and they're still like the amount of money that gets taken from communities and stuff like that. I mean, it's given, but at the same time, like it's probably going to lawyer fees and stuff like that. And we obviously know like just all the atrocities come out of more or less the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know how, like, okay, I don't know if Jesus existed. Apparently, historians say it's likely that he did. Well, if he was anything that, like, the Bible says he was about, like, I don't even know what the dude would say about, like, a Joel Osteen, or like all of these jokers, that involve,
Right.
like, God and stuff like that. No, I'm not saying. Look, if you got your religion and, like, you're getting something out of it, then I'm happy for you. Do your thing. But as far as the tribalism that we see in this country now, where they're trying to take away the rights of women, which is kind of a constant, unfortunately. Um, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Religion's like a penis. If you have one, great. Keep it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I've like I said, I've taken my beliefs more or less, like, because when you're a kid, your mind is very malleable.
Yeah.
So you when you're raised in a religion, you believe everything to a T, basically, that you're told.
Yeah.
You believe the stories as they're told, but as I've gotten older, I kind of think that it's all meant to. I don't think any of it is meant to be taken too literally,
Right.
except for stuff like the Ten Commandments. Obviously, you know, if everybody lived by those, you know, commandments,
Yeah.
more or less, society wouldn't be too terrible. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some good stuff in there. Not killing seems like a good one.
right, and then there's, you know, there's probably lessons to be learned from the stories and stuff like that. And even when
Yeah.
you get into like Revelations and shit, where it's like all the end of the world stuff or just all the apocalyptic stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of it comes from like there's repercussions to actions, and it's, you know, a lot of it kind of, a lot of people reference the Bible when it comes to like stuff that's going on nowadays, you know,
Yeah.
or if there's any kind of end of world scenario that happens, people often quote the Bible, and it sort of fits. Have you seen This Is the End, the movie? It's like a comedy
No.
flick.
Is it a comedy?
Yeah, so this came out like, I want to say like 2016, maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
It had like all of the big comedy actors from like Superbad, and not like, so Seth Rogen, James Franco, Jonah Hill,
All right.
you know,
Okay.
and basically they all played themselves. It was a movie with nothing but celebrities,
Yeah.
and it was the end of the world basically. But
I'm gonna check this out.
yeah, no, it's a really good flick. But in the movie, um, I forget where I was going with it. I know it was all about the end of the world and stuff like that. We were talking about the Bible. Yeah, no, he literally picked up a Bible and was describing like how the hills were engulfed in flames, and the Hollywood Hills were literally engulfed. But like shit, like, you know, when you think about like all the environmental damage, you know, all the wildfires and stuff like that, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, some people think that's repercussions of our actions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like there's an author that I really like named Chris Hedges, and like I said, I'm not a religious dude, but he was describing because he's a minister, but very lefty and like not part of the whole Jesus Republic. I don't know. Well, he's not part of that, right? And he said he describes God as a verb and not a noun. So basically, the argument is like all this religion, because you see religion every society, you know,
Yeah.
it's us struggling, I think, with the weirdness of the human experience.
Right,
And
right.
there's certain things that like what you're describing, like cause and effect, and like, you know, a journey, and like, you know, consequences to your actions, and you know, I think that it's kind of was our first attempt at really explaining stuff like that, and you know, the conversation is just kind of ongoing. Um,
And definitely your mind starts to wander when you ponder the universe and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Albert Einstein, have you heard of the expression pantheism?
Perhaps the term doesn't ring a bell, but
So Einstein did not believe in a personal God, but he used the term God a decent amount, and he said, I believe in Spinoza's God. So I call God physics. I call God, you know, the nature of the universe. And I thought that was like, that's where I'm at, I guess. You know, like, I'm not like, you know, super like, you know, preachy atheist or anything like that. But I guess like I just don't like do the personal God thing, and like I'll use the language, but I'm referring to something else, and
yeah.
you know,
Well, also God, you know, the idea of God can get in the way of personal accountability too.
oh yeah,
And you know, because people think that like God will either save them from their shitty situation, or that it, you know, but it's like in reality, everything that happens to you in one way or another, some situations not included, but for the most part, everything that, you know, all the bad things in your life are in one way or another due to the things you do.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
if you kind of disregard God and think like I'm the one that's in charge of my life, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Not some higher being, then you really kind of gain a lot more
yeah.
mental freedom, I guess.
Well, I like to think it's a result of things that we do, but I think that sometimes the universe is just the universe, and it's just like, you know,
Yeah, there's definitely things you can't plan for and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I just mean like, you know, there's people who pray, you know, for their finances to get better. There's people that pray for this, for that, but they
Yeah.
they don't take, you know, any of the steps to actually do that. And it's
Yeah.
like the whole manifesting thing. Like you know, manifestation's real, but it's like there's like a verbal and a physical part to it with
Yeah.
prayer or with manifestation. You can pray to God that, you know, all of your, you know, like that everything works out, that you get your new job, and your bills get paid and stuff like that if you're struggling. But really, if you're not like taking the steps
Yeah.
while praying, then really,
Yeah.
that's where like the whole, well, God's not answering my prayers. Well, he's looking at you like, dude, you just sat there and prayed. You didn't really do nothing.
There's an author that I follow, who he was being interviewed, and they said, well, what's your personal belief on religion? And he said, well, I happen to be an atheist, but I also believe that God helps those who help themselves. And I think that speaks to what you're saying,
Definitely. So how did Consumed with Hatred actually form? And this was back in like 2012-ish, right?
Yeah, we've been a band for a while, and I started it with a dude that I played music with in high school, and it was just me and him for a while, uh, and he had actually gotten out of the military at the time, and was moving up to the DC area. So we got together and just started jamming some, behemoth stuff and All Out War and like the kind of stuff that we were into. So we did that, did some light touring with some friends and played a whole lot of shows. And when like right before COVID happened, things kind of me and the drummer kind of like parted ways, and that was that. Fast forward to post the end of the world, and I wanted to be in another band with a similar message, with a similar, but maybe more accessible type of sound. And I started playing music with my buddy Ari, who was like a longtime friend and kind of fan of the band. So we started jamming, and we ended up jamming a "Consume with Hatred" song or two. And the question came up: should we keep the name? Should we keep the songs? And it was a long kind of thought out discussion. And yeah, we determined we're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep the message, and we're gonna keep it going. And we had the bass player then left since, and we have essentially a new lineup. And that's just kind of where we're at.
Gotcha. So in 2012, you released Over Before It Started, which is the demo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll go into that, and we'll pretty much like kind of go over the whole discography more or less. One of the things I like to do on the podcast, I pick apart the lyrics because I think,
Nice.
yeah, there's a lot to be talked about when it comes to lyrics, and I think that's where you really learn about a band. So the first track, Gott mit uns, the translation is God with us, right? Which is a German war motto, from what I understand. What was the reason for choosing that name for the song?
I was interested in the connection between religion and war, and how easily weaponized religion is. You know, Reading the Bible kind of gives me pause, if for no other reason, because it really feels like a bunch of older dudes trying to keep things in line and set up society. So, it just feeds their interest. So the closing line is, our Bible's full of praise for war, but no mention of intelligence.
Yep.
And I'm just like, what does it mean if you're not praising intelligence? What does it mean if you're praising wisdom over and over again, and not intelligence? What does that say about what you're really trying to do with this book?
Yeah.
And there might have been some positive messages in the Bible. I'm not denying that, but it's been used. I mean, since Constantine, over and over and over again, to justify these horrible, unspeakable things. Why is God always on both sides of these wars? I don't know, but it just seems to be the case. So that's what I'm exploring with that.
Gotcha. The song opens up with "Napalm sticks to children, napalm sticks to kids," which is a reference to a nursery rhyme about the Vietnam War.
Yeah, the soldiers actually used to chant that in.
Yeah, it's a cadence that the military uses. Like, and for people who don't know, that's like when they're marching and singing.
Yeah.
Now I want people to know like the background behind that, because it's pretty fucked up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna read this quote. It's from the film An Officer and a Gentleman. So it's to really elaborate, guys. Flying low and feeling mean, find a family by the stream, pick off a pair and hear 'em scream, 'cause napalm sticks to kids. Family of gooks are sitting in a ditch. Little baby sucking on his mama's tit. Chemical burns, don't give a shit because napalm sticks to kids. That's kind of the essence of where that comes from, guys.
Yeah.
It's literally soldiers are talking about napalming innocent civilians, and literally, like he says, don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up because it's like the way that they make them sing about doing these depraved acts, it's like a way that they desensitize them ahead of time
Yeah.
for killing and stuff like that. And I feel like it's something that it's one of the negative things when it comes to our military, or probably any military, is
Yeah.
like you're just being desensitized to kill under orders and stuff, and that's a lot of what your music talks about.
Yeah.
So where'd you get that reference from? Like, did you see it somewhere? I'm assuming you heard it somewhere.
The drummer, the drummer is actually the person singing that.
Okay.
Doing the cadence. He was airborne. He was Army.
Gotcha.
And, I don't know if we were drinking the one day and he just brought it up, but yeah, I'm just like, what are you talking about, dude? And he explained that they would chant that sometimes. But I think it's actually formally like banned. I don't think that's a thing you can do in the military anymore.
Right.
But it happens.
I kind of remember reading that in my research.
Yeah.
And then the other lyrics, we kind of already mentioned the last line, but violence is the way of our Lord, hatred, the parties of God spread his word, a declaration of worship signed by the shepherd with his sheep in line singing.
Yeah.
And then religion is cold, God is heartless, the kingdom is total fucking darkness. So this kind of is more elaborative on what you were saying.
Yeah. It's a dark song for sure.
Yeah, but there's a certain, some people would say it's dark. I would say your music's very real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, some shit needs to be heard, whether or not it's hard to hear or not. It's that pill that's hard to swallow. That's kind of a.
That's exactly right. That's why in the video we didn't use footage from the Crusades. We used footage from modern wars.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the footage that you use for your music videos and stuff like that, because you do it in several music videos. It's a lot of clips of war and I guess, political propaganda, stuff like that. It's a lot of stuff mixed together. Can you talk about the process in making those videos and stuff and how you choose those clips?
Yeah, so the internet has been amazing with stuff like that. Usually I'll spend a whole lot of time just looking for videos. Sometimes we'll film it ourselves, sometimes it'll be live stuff. I'll kind of just be searching the internet for things that I think are really cool and just, represent what we're trying to do. And, obviously you can't just take it, unless it's stock footage that you can buy.
Right.
Which I've done sometimes. But sometimes I'll see things that's just like, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I got to reach out to the person who made this footage and I got to see if I could use it. So for example, in the video for the knife, there's a video of some people that I've talked to online dancing in Gaza, Palestine while they're being bombed.
I was gonna bring this up.
Yeah.
You read my mind, because they're doing a cartwheel while like a building's being bombed in the background, and
that's real. That's not
Yeah.
a layer. Yeah. And you could find, if you Google Gaza Parkour Family on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, you could find it.
Okay.
I got their permission to use the footage, and to me that was as an artist, even though like we're never a big band or anything like that, to me being able to do that was really humbling. Because now this is real. I mean, these guys are really doing, this is their life.
Right.
Their houses are getting bombed and they're dancing. To me, that's like everything that art should represent. That was like such a perfect moment. And
Yeah, it should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed.
yes,
It's a great saying.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find the reference, but I believe you referenced the parkour in Immortal Ground song, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I was, either way, we'll find that later if we have to.
Yeah.
The next song, Racketeer, the lyrics I liked to quote were, "You were a god in the courtroom, in these dark alleys, watch your back, we don't need due process, what goes around always comes back, for every innocent kid you locked up and for every family you destroyed, What the city needs is some vigilante justice. I'm assuming this is all about like the unjust legal system.
It's about a specific thing that happened. It's called the Kids for Cash scandal that happened. I'm from Pennsylvania,
Okay.
remember, and it was two judges, and oh, I cannot remember their name right now, but it was two judges who would give these they would see these juvenile cases, and they would put juveniles into these for-profit boys' homes and prisons, and they were getting kickbacks. This is like one of the most egregious instances of corruption in American history, by the way, and it happened in my backyard.
Damn.
It could have been me, easy, very easy, because I was, I didn't have a picture perfect background
Right.
growing up. And it's about that. There were two judges, and they were held accountable for their actions. I don't know if you. I'm surprised that you have the demo, but because it's not on Spotify or anything like that. Um, but the song does end with one of the boys who shot himself in the heart, and he had a really good future ahead of himself. He just I forget
Damn.
what exactly he was convicted of, but he shot himself in the heart as a result of being convicted and being food for this evil, corruption, life destroying corruption that was going on with these two judges. And to me, there's a movie about it called, or a documentary called Kids for Cash, if anybody wants to watch it.
Definitely.
For me, coming from Pennsylvania, I was like, I got to write about this. This is wild.
Yeah, no doubt. So they were basically dishing out these harsh sentences and stuff.
Yeah, and they were getting kicked back. You fill up our.
I gotcha. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. That's a huge problem, is because a lot of prisons are private institutions, and
Yeah.
I know, like, a lot of times, like, I was just listening to the Killer Mike Joe Rogan podcast,
Yeah.
and they were talking about how one of the prisons, probably in the state that he's from, was like where it's like in the contract or whatever that they guarantee occupancy. And Killer Mike's like, how are you supposed to guarantee occupancy? That shouldn't be the goal. Like, the goal should be to like have as little occupancy in these prisons as possible, but
Yeah.
because they're private institutions that are profitable, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole fucked up thing.
Yeah.
So track 3, All Kings Fall. You'd sell your fucking soul, but no one would buy. You're treading on a snake just to make a dollar sign. Is death a business? Is life an expense? God, money, liberty, that's how it's justified. Sign for the American dream on a blood-stained bottom line. And then all hail the bottom line.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, does that just refer to like kind of contracts, and is this referring to the idea in the music industry and stuff that you sell your soul to obtain fame?
Profits. And this. I don't like to evoke. Don't forget, this was written a long time ago, so 2012. I don't
Right.
like to evoke the imagery of the Gadsden snake anymore. However, if you put tracks across a snake, it kind of looks like a dollar sign. It's just kind of like a,
Okay.
and it to me, what's going on economically in this country really is going against everything that it should stand for. That song was very heavily influenced by when I first started going to protests. The first thing that I went to was Occupy DC, and I was really impressed by a lot of the things that I saw there, and it fundamentally really changed me. And I forget what year. I think that was 2011. That really changed the way that I looked at the world, and All Kings Fall is just kind of an expression of that.
Yeah. Another line I liked: the rules don't even apply to you, do they, sweetheart? When you get sick, the help comes running.
Yeah.
So this is like rules for thee and not for me.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what's going on. How wild is it that like a for-profit medical system means you could die for being poor? Like what are we even doing here, man?
Yeah, on my episode with Jake, I talked about I got myocarditis and pericarditis recently, which is where your heart sac gets inflamed and your heart gets inflamed. And I'm gonna be honest, I haven't paid a cent on my fucking bills yet, and I'm like, and they're just now. It was funny. I was telling my dad they're starting to change their terminology now in the emails, because at first it was like, your bill is due. There's this, and now they started using immediately in the terminology. But it's like, it's one of them things, man. You had no control over it, and it's like a $2,000 bill for like a night and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to hear about all that.
It's
You know,
cool. I've been good since then, but it's just an example of,
yeah,
you know what I mean. You're just forced to fucking, and it's like I work for a living, I have money, but like,
yeah.
should I have to pay $2,000 for something that obviously I would never wish on myself or
Yeah,
anyone else?
richest country in the world. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Who's in charge? You know.
Yeah, I've always said, when it comes to the whole free healthcare argument, anybody that is arguing against it, they probably have never had a serious health issue ever happen to them or a loved one, because the second that you have a loved one experience severe medical debt or yourself, yeah, your opinions change real quick, and it's like we got money for all sorts of shit,
Yeah,
you know. The same people that'll say, "Oh, we can't, why are we supporting Ukraine when we can't support our own country?" It's like, there's your argument for free healthcare right there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, dude.
Um, no, the rules for thee and not for me thing is like super prevalent. It was made very evident during the pandemic because you had all sorts of politicians who were putting these restrictions like on their constituents, and then they were just flat out disobeying them.
Yeah,
And it also is just really prevalent in the workplace. I work in a warehouse, and just any sort of job, like office spaces. There's a pecking order, and just there's a lot of bosses that like to dish punishment out and shit, even though they don't have to obey by the same rules. And I'm a proponent, and like I don't go for that shit, man.
yeah,
Like people gotta realize like they need to stand up to that at work and stuff like that.
yeah,
I get it, because like it can be hard to stand up at your job, but like if that shit's unfair, at the end of the day, there's nothing they can do about it. This ain't decades ago. Like you can fucking sue for wrongful termination, shit like that.
yeah. You could organize. I mean,
Definitely.
corporation. It's weird that we spend so much time of our lives as part of a totalitarian institution like a corporation, because that's what it is. The
Yeah.
rules come straight from above, and they come straight down, and you just got to live with it. You know.
Yeah, and
So
it's, a lot of people spend time complaining, but they don't actually like do anything about it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And that's why it's important for, people to get together, talk about the shit that's unfair and like what you can actually do about it.
yeah. You could be like the Starbucks people and unionize.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna bring that up, and they ended up getting in trouble for that, right? And then that
Yeah.
basically kind of further pushed their movement.
It's a
You know.
constant struggle. You know.
Yeah, definitely. It's like perfect example. I've probably bitched about this on my podcast before, but like at work, they try to tell us that we can't leave our area until 5 minutes before our shift ends, and we can't line up at the clock until 1 minute before our shift ends. Very unrealistic, because no one's working until the last minute or the last 5 minutes. There's a lot of stuff that you can't even start, and like why am I gonna start a whole pallet of stuff when I gotta put it back in 5 minutes? Shit like that. People got shit to put away, vehicles to park, you know, because there's forklifts, scooters, shit like that we drive and stuff like that. Everybody's breaking this rule. You got people who line up like 10 minutes before the clock, before the shift ends and stuff like that, and it's like I've personally had upper level people say stuff to me, but then I watch other people get let off the hook, or like they like, and the whole thing where like some states have implemented the right to sit at work, which you know people who don't know, a lot of jobs don't let you sit at work.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
Honestly.
crazy. Like if you're a cashier, like when I worked at Belk in the mall here, which is just a department store for people who don't know.
Mm.
When I was at the cash register, even if there's no customers around, I couldn't sit. They don't even like give you a stool to sit. And it's crazy because like you got elderly ladies working here, man, and you're telling them they can't sit even when there's no work. They do that at my warehouse job too. Now
Yeah.
I get it because there's people that take advantage of it and stuff, but like there's just so many times where there's nothing to do, there's nothing you can do.
Mm.
You know what I mean? and they're just like, you can't sit down, you can never catch a break in some of these work environments. It's like you work your ass off so that you can get some time to just relax, catch your breath, and then the second you do that, they're like, all right, give this dude more work.
Yeah.
And it's just a terrible system, man.
Yeah. Have you ever read much Marx?
What's that?
Have you ever read Marx, Karl Marx?
I have not, but I see his book all the time
Yeah.
in my workplace.
I think you might. I think you might like Capital. I think. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to give that a read.
All right.
So you were born into money. We were born into hell. I liked that line.
Yeah.
Of the song because it it talks about being like obviously born into certain circumstances. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the game is so rigged against the working poor. I mean, even if you are a very dedicated, extreme hard worker, like who works harder than some janitors? You know what I mean?
Guaranteed.
Like if you're not born with the skills and the brain, like the ability to just like rise up in the educational system or the mental wherewithal to like maybe start your business,
Right.
it's just like it's just so rigged against you. And
Definitely.
there's just so many levels and there's so many intersectionality. Like I'm sitting here as a white dude and I understand that comes with certain privileges. But I mean, the whole game is just so rigged against the working poor.
Definitely.
And that is the final price of the car that they don't want you to talk about, because the class war is the absolute thing that they want to avoid.
I was just about to use that term because I think the poor is, a much more I can't think of the word right now, but it's a class of people that's discriminated against. The poor is probably the biggest group that's ever discriminated against, and it's it doesn't have any color. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Theo Vaughn, have you ever heard of that comedian?
No.
He has a whole bit about being poor white and an area with other poor
Yeah.
ethnic groups and stuff like that, and it's like you said, there's obviously privileges that come with being white. So when you are, poor white, it's like people still think that you're in a better place.
Yeah.
When really, he's like, why would I? Because he had a kid say something to him about like, white people buying up all the neighborhoods and stuff like that. Which there's truth to gentrification and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. But he was like, dude, why would I do that and then come move in next door with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the last line I picked from that song, there's no such thing as a peaceful protest from those you crushed. I picked that because it's a good representation of why protests and unrests happen.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people just don't understand where it comes from. They just look at the destruction of property and stuff like that. So further elaborate on, why there can't always be a peaceful protest.
I just want to say something about the gentrification thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you said, while it is real, and I understand the line, why would I do that and come move in next to you? A lot of the times this is driven by people with extreme, the developers, that really like, use their leverage to just like destroy a community and make
Right.
it uninhabitable first. So, yeah, but yeah, it's not on the individual level. Now, in terms of, there can't be a peaceful protest. There's no such thing as a peaceful protest because you're expressing a certain violence of the situation. You're expressing something that can't really, be considered peaceful, even though it seems like it. Martin Luther King said that the protest is the violence of, or the language of the unheard, and I think that's there's a lot of truth to that.
Definitely.
So.
Track 4, All That We Ever Had Faith In. We came from nothing, we came from nowhere. All that we ever had faith in was no one being there. That kind of is encapsulating the meaning of the song there.
Yeah.
Does that come from personal experiences like growing up and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, my dad died when I was a kid. My mother struggles with a lot of mental issues. To kind of summarize it pretty quick. So, in a lot of ways, I kind of raised myself. And I feel like that's more of a hardcore song than anything. It's not about any specific like political thing, but it is about a little bit about my personal struggle, So
Yeah, I gotcha. There's definitely, I've heard people talking about people who constantly go through like traumatic events or just, constantly living in a state of, not urgency, but, when your body's just in a stressful mindset all the time, that you do eventually get more comfortable in there than you do in a normal environment.
yeah,
So, like, that's where the, one second. Um, yeah, all we had faith in was no one being there, because that's kind of, I get what you're saying, because when that's all you know, then when you start to,
yeah.
yeah. Track 5. Oh, and then we're not the ones who hide in shadows, we are the darkness that surrounds.
You know what? My buddy actually got that. This is crazy. My buddy got those lyrics tattooed on his shoulder, and to me, it was just like, oh wow, that's so amazing. But shout out to my homie Lenny,
Definitely.
and
Oh,
the
yeah.
homies in Big Gorgeous. But yeah, that like really profoundly affected me. Lenny, if you're watching this, still fuck you though. But that was like, wow, that was like something
Hell yeah, of course.
yeah, yeah. So that's I don't know. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I like that lyric.
Yeah, track 5. Time kills us. Okay, sorry. My thing goes off sometimes, and I heard a computer noise, so I was like, "Uh-oh, we're good." Time kills us all. You were the only one who said the world would make way. You'll never know what that it or what you saved. The only one who could bring this pen to paper after all these years. The quiet voice in hell that silenced all those screaming fears. Can you talk about what this song's about?
Yeah. So that's about somebody who has your back and somebody who really gets you through those rough times. And to me, uh, writing a song, mentioning somebody in a song or a piece of your art is the highest compliment you can give another human being.
Definitely.
Because it lasts forever. It won't
Right.
even end when time kills us all. It's now it's owned by the ages and
Gotcha.
the universe. So,
Nice.
so.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people like do memorial tracks and stuff like that. There's one that we'll talk about later and stuff like that. That's another reason why I like to bring up certain people that have passed on the podcast and stuff like that, because it's all about keeping memories alive. And that could it's like you said, they don't have to be past, or they could still be living,
Yeah.
but it keeps the name going and stuff like that.
Yeah. So.